Let me share with you a somewhat frequent and quite typical conversation. It goes something like this. People are not practicing Judaism anymore. If we don't make sure this younger generation does more than our people are not going to be around much longer. And I usually respond with, what does being Jewish mean in your mind? And they answer, coming to Shabbat services, celebrating the holidays. There are so few people here at Shabbat services, they might add. And that answer makes sense if you were to read this week's Torah portion, Amor. It details all of the major holidays, Shabbat, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Passover, and Shavuot, and even the Omer period that we are in the midst of right now. But to be honest, the observances detailed there are nothing like what we currently do. What we practice, what we observe, is only remotely similar to what we did in biblical times. We don't sacrifice anymore. And unless I'm mistaken about all of our professions, we are not farmers as well. The rabbis reimagined our holidays and gave us the Shabbat prayers we know and the Seder we just enjoyed. And Jesus' Last Supper, for example, was actually not a Passover Seder because the Seder had not been developed yet. Yes, he observed Passover, but not the way we do it with 4 cups of wine, and certainly not with matzo ball soup and gefilte fish. So the first answer to our question is that every generation reimagines Jewish observance. What people are really saying is that they're not doing the things the way I do them. Yes, we want our kids to be Jewish, but it would be boring and not really good for our survival, I would say, if what they do is the same as what we do. So instead of complaining about what they do not do, maybe we'd be better off saying, I love being Jewish, and I hope you will love being Jewish too. And I hope you will figure out what being Jewish means to you in your own life. So that's the first piece of advice for my guide to being Jewish. The rabbis also provide us with the most important lesson about our tradition. They remind us again and again that being Jewish is not about Shabbat and the holidays. It's not so much about matzo ball soup and even the Shabbat prayers that many of us love to join together and sing together. The rabbis reimagined religiosity in terms of ethics. And I stand with them on their view of the centrality of ethics. And I have said this over and over, and I will continue to say this over and over again, that we should stop defining religious solely in terms of ritual observance. When we describe someone as religious, we mean that they light Shabbat candles 18 minutes before sunset, and they walk to synagogue on Shabbat. But are these character traits? Do these define if a person knows right from wrong? If they are scrupulous in their ethical conduct? Are they honest in their business? Do they engage in lashon hara, gossip? Such things seem far more important to me. And there is far more written in the Talmud, that great repository of Jewish wisdom, about how to conduct your business than about whether this dish is kosher or not. The purpose of the ritual is to point to the ethical. If you kiss the mezuzah when you enter your house, does this help to ensure that kind words only flow from your lips? When you wear a kippah here in this place, are you more apt to speak kindly of others? The mezuzah and the kippah are guides. For the ancient rabbis, the worst offense was to feign piety but act in an unethical manner. To be wearing a kippah and therefore be outwardly identified as a religious Jew and cheat in business is a chilul Hashem, a terrible sin, a defamation of God's name, because one would then be suggesting that's how all Jews act. To act in an ethical manner is to be religious, is to be Jewish. We would do a better job defining these attributes with our great tradition and its survival than even eating matzah on Passover. And that is what the younger generation might hold on to. That is what might ensure our survival. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we said to our kids, you should be honest because that's how Jews behave? Nearly 200 years ago, Rabbi Israel Salanter, the founder of the Musar movement in Judaism, a philosophy that sought to bring ethics back to the center, told his students that he had a very important job for them. They were to go out and inspect the local matzah factory to certify that its products were indeed kosher for Passover. They talked among themselves before their rabbi entered the room. They had spent weeks studying the laws of Passover and poring over the words of the Talmudic tractate on the holiday. They had argued amongst themselves whether or not legumes should be permitted on the holiday and how to sell the chametz. One of them shouted, how many minutes must transpire from when the flour and water are mixed until the matzah is taken out of the oven? 18 minutes, another said. In a nutshell, by the way, the technical difference between bread and matzah is all about the timing. 18 minutes is matzah, 19 is bread. Not good bread, but bread nonetheless. And the great sage then entered the room, and they said, we are ready for this task. Rabbi, one of his students asked, is there something we should specifically look for at the matzah factory? Yes, most definitely, said Rabbi Israel Salanter. When you get to the factory, you will see there an old woman baking matzah. The woman is poor and has a large family to support. Make sure that the factory's owners are paying her a living wage. The students then stared at each other in astonishment. One asked, what about making sure the preparation and cooking take no more than 18 minutes? That's not really the most important thing, my students, Salanter said. The most important thing is to make sure that the person who is baking this matzah is properly taken care of. If she is not, then the matzah factory is not worthy of being called kosher. It's not really about the holidays. It's about how we care for each other. It's about whether or not we recognize that what we do here and now in this moment at this sacred hour is not the most important or even the most Jewish things we do. The Jewish things that define us should be more about how we treat each other. Do we speak with honesty? Do we strive for kindness? I have a great deal of confidence that these great ethical demands may be more crucial for our survival than all the matzah we purchased and all the holidays we observe. Do we speak with honesty? Do we strive for kindness? Do we then guarantee our people's future?